Marjanowski tweeting, Memphis is finalizing a trade to secure, well, this says Toronto is finalizing a trade to secure Marc Gasol. We opened this show with the Milwaukee Bucks news, and Ramona, I said, hey, this feels like an arms race in the East.
Exactly
the pressure is on Toronto now after Philadelphia and Milwaukee. Please explain what this will do for the Raptors.
Well, I mean, he's an upgrade at the center position there, and I think they are in a situation, and I'm enjoying sitting back and watching these teams in the East. Finally, we have an arms race in the East, right? Philly makes their move early, then we see Milwaukee, then we see Toronto here, and Boston, where you at, Boston?
Welcome to the NBA first round. They are rolling deep in Jurassic Park, ready for game one of this Eastern Conference first round battle between the 7-seed Magic and their 2-seed Raptors. Steve Clifford gonna let them play it out. 5 to shoot. Augustin, 3 to shoot. He'll take. You bet. DJ Augustin, a cold-blooded tray. Orlando leads by 3.
Sportsfeld!
It is Sportsfeld Storytime. We are looking back to 2019, the Toronto Raptors' successful NBA playoff run. Unbelievable that they would end up with an NBA championship. And I realized, listening back to this, Drake, we did not talk about the press conference to start things out. We didn't talk about the laugh. We didn't talk about Fun Guy. We missed a huge part of the beginning of the Kawhi experience, which was the memification of Kawhi Leonard.
That's true. And it's like his whole sort of, I guess, thing. Like, I remember finding that the memification of Kawhi Leonard really not fun because, like, it came in the middle of all the, in retrospect, very stupid questions about, like, will he play here? And, like, will he be happy? And then, like, the memification was just like, all right, like, let's get to the good stuff about, I found the memes and the laughing and all that not annoying, but it wasn't what I wanted from Kawhi when he first got here.
Yeah. We were just so excited to talk about the games and talk about his ability that we forgot that he was everything he said and did. Him like laughing on the bench or not laughing on the bench, or him like making everything he did for the entire time he was here was analyzed and done to death. We picked things up in February 2 years ago. This week, the Raptors made their second big move of the year. A couple of small moves before that. They made 2 moves to clear space. They got cash from the Sixers for Malachi Richardson, and they traded Greg Monroe, the Moose, in a second to the Brooklyn Nets for cash. And then on February 7th, near the end of the trade deadline, CJ Miles, Jonas Valanciunas, DeLon Wright, and a second-round pick in 2024 to the Memphis Grizzlies for Marc Gasol. Jake, what were you doing when the Raptors traded for Marc Gasol?
I was in the gym of our apartment building. It was a nice, I want to say it was like a Wednesday or a Thursday afternoon, maybe, or a Tuesday afternoon. It was a Tuesday afternoon, I think. And then I was in the gym ready for a nice afternoon workout. I got about 2 minutes in, checked my phone, saw on Twitter that the Raptors had traded for Marc Gasol, and I immediately left the gym because I was too excited to do anything.
Crazy.
And I was just, and because it was a weird deadline too, because it was very much, like with the 2015 Jays drink, very much like you knew that they had to add something. You knew they were one piece away from going from like, we can win this, like win a title, to we're going to win a title. And like, you knew it was there. And that guy, I want to say, was Mirotic.
I think you're right.
And then the Bucks, of all teams, got him. And I remember thinking, like, man, the Bucks were already going to be a really tough out, and then they got the one guy that we were like, that's the guy we need, the 3-and-D center. And then, lo and behold, Mirotic was unplayable for the Bucks.
Played off the floor because Marc Gasol is too damn good. They would fill out the bottom of the roster as well. Jeremy Lin signed a deal for the rest of the year.
That's right. Of course, the famous Sportsfeld episode.
On air with Blake when that happened. They also added Jody Meeks and Eric Moreland, a couple guys that would feature down the stretch. The Raptors would be more or less untouchable the rest of the way. It took me one possession to be like, oh yeah, Marc Gasol's my favorite player. I was they're like, is it even an upgrade over Jonas? Like, yeah, absolutely. He's the fucking best center I've ever seen in my life. I was so in on Marc Gasol, and to this day remain so in on Marc Gasol.
I'm gonna say it was I don't know what you call these, like an all-time Twitter night. I don't know what I can't remember exactly if it was Twitter or in person at this point, but your reaction, I feel like the second play of Gasol's first game, he like took the ball in the post and like a one-handed dart to someone at the arc. Maybe it was Kyle. And I remember you just like losing your mind watching Marc Gasol pass. That was the thing for you. It was his passing that I remember you were just all in on and sold on immediately.
Yeah, 8:14 of his first game, I tweeted Gasol rules, and then if Marc Gasol ever whipped a pass to me, I believe I would make the shot. They would cruise down the stretch. Obviously, I mean, they're a very good team and they added very good players. So that's not a big surprise. They would be the 2 seed, 58-24, and immediately get to face the Orlando Magic. And what happens in Game 1's with the Raptors? No matter what the lineup looks like, they lose.
Yeah, this was not a fun one. This was maybe for a year in which it wouldn't be, a Raptors playoff run without something going horrendously wrong. But this would be sort of like, this was a real like nadir Raptors Twitter evening with this loss. The fact that they lost a Game 1 to a vastly inferior opponent. They were absolutely dominated by a former Raptor who was not that good with the Raptors. And Kyle Lowry had 0 points.
It was brutal. It's brutal.
A perfect mix of anything that could have gone wrong in a Raptors playoff Game 1 happened in this Game 1.
Yes, it did. And looking back at it, I mean, they would close this series out in very little issue. They won by 30 in Game 2 and 5 in Game 3 and 22 in Game 4 and then basically 20 again in Game 5 with Kawhi having 37 and 34 and 27 and a 30-point game in there from Pascal Siakam. Kawhi would average 27.8 points in the series on 53% shooting from 3, and Siakam sort of a sign of things to come, 22.5 points in this series. But it was funny to look at this and go, Fred VanVleet averaged 7 points, shot 31% from 3, and was pretty much unplayable, and Serge Ibaka also struggled pretty heavily in this series.
Yeah, it's kind of, you look back at the sort of the story of the 2019 Raptors and how outside of Kawhi and Kyle, sort of the two guys who I think are in sort of the legend story status that every finals run needs are Fred and Serge. Fred has his, the dad strength storyline. He has the cut under his eye and the losing the piece of the tooth, and Serge has the Band-Aid on his head, and so many huge moments, especially in Game 7 against Philly, and then going forward. And they became like forever now. Serge and Fred are Raptors icons because of this. And Fred possibly will be a Raptors icon for a lot more than just this run. But like we just signed Fred VanVleet to an $80 million contract this summer, and it all sort of begins here, I think. And like, can Fred be the heir apparent to Kyle and all that? But you go back to the Magic series and the first 4 games of the Philly series, and for Fred, even like the first few games of the Bucks series, and he was sort of like persona non grata in Toronto for a while, which is now just kind of wild to think about.
Yeah, there's an alternate universe where they lose to Philly and Fred is like leaves because he's just not, they can't have him. It's incredible to think about. They move forward to the Phillies series, as you mentioned, and Game 1 is, we talked about playoff Kawhi, and he was pretty darn good against Orlando, but they were way better than Orlando. Philly was a tough test. Embiid, they added Jimmy Butler, who I think was the scariest guy in this whole series. But Kawhi, game 1, 45 points and 11 boards. Raptors win 108-95. It was the, oh, right, this is the Kawhi Leonard that we are getting. Oh, my God.
I was at a wedding for that game, but it was a very small wedding that was at a restaurant kind of thing. So we were in kind of like the private dining room area, but out in like the normal part of the restaurant, there was a TV behind the bar, and I took a lot of bathroom trips in quotes to just walk past that bar and sort of check out what the score was. And I remember it got to a point where, because I feel like this one was kind of tight to begin with. Mm-hmm. And I remember getting to a point where I was able to sort of, I saw Kawhi do something ridiculous and put them up, and I was like, okay. And I was able to sort of not leave the table so much.
Game 2, the Sixers get a win back. Jimmy Butler, as I mentioned, 30 points in this game. He was really good. Looking back at it, I can't believe Philly let Jimmy Butler leave. Like, crazy.
It's funny how, and like, I know as we sit here, I believe Philly's in first place in the East.
Yes.
But still not afraid of them, and never will be. But like going into the series, it was like Embiid, and a little bit of Simmons, and a little bit of Jimmy. And then it was just like, oh, the only guy on this team that can hang with Kawhi is Jimmy Butler.
Kawhi had 35 in the loss, but a tight one, 94-89, pretty much tight the whole way. The Raptors they give up a 9-point lead out of the top, and they were down pretty big at the half, and that sort of was what cost them. They went into the half down pretty big, and they weren't able to dig their way out of it. Yeah,
this series, we forget, really turned quickly for the Raptors in the first 3 games.
Yes.
This went from like, oh, it's from like Kawhi putting up 45 in game 1 and like we're like, this is great, to, oh, it's happening again very quickly.
Speaking of it happening again, your inciting action is in game 3. Embiid breaks loose. Embiid goes off for 33 and 10 with 5 blocks. Kawhi also has 33, but Kyle struggles again, and we heard about it. He was 2 for 10 and minus 28, and Embiid breaks out the airplane dunk.
Embiid fakes, Embiid down the lane. This building is shaking right now.
And if you're Nick Nurse right now, you want it to go to 40.
The airplane dunk that changed the world. This was a punking. I remember talking about this, about how sometimes in a series one team gets punked, and it's how they bounce back from that is sort of what is unexpected. 116-95. This was, as you mentioned, this was the worst nightmares coming true in front of us, because Kawhi was really good in this game. He had 33. He shot 59%, and it wasn't anywhere near close enough.
I tweeted, as the buzzer of this game went, I tweeted, this team will never win anything. Because that's how it felt, which is crazy now. Like, that's how it felt after that game. It was just like we were done. Kawhi could do whatever he wanted, but without a supporting cast, it was never going to happen. And it really felt like they were done after this one.
This was the bottom of the barrel for the guys we mentioned earlier. Van Vliet, 0 for 7, 0 for 5 from deep, only had 1 point. Ibaka, 2 for 6, only had 4 points. Jody Meeks played in this game. Eric Moreland played in this game. Raptors emptied the bench and took the loss. But they bounced back. A big fourth quarter. They win 101-96 in game 4 to even it up. Kawhi, it's almost like, at this point, it's ridiculous. Kawhi, 39 in this game, 14 rebounds, 5 assists. Like, oh my God, it's hard to even properly say. Like, man, oh man, Kawhi Leonard was ridiculous in this run.
There's up by one timeout left. Simmons pressing up on Leonard. Embiid switches, fires a long one. Nothing but net. Kawhi not.
Come on, Embiid came out, and the man following, they had him had to buy on this play. Now watch as he comes over. Here they come. Now they're going to trap him right there. No, I'm elevating.
Big time shot by Kawhi Leonard. And this is why he was acquired in that blockbuster deal. Trying something new. And the fans on Bay Street and Front Street in Toronto ecstatic right now watching the game.
I know that this whole series, obviously, we're talking about the shot in Game 7. And obviously the shot is the fucking shot. And nothing's going to top it. The three-pointer that Kawhi hits with about 50-ish seconds or like a minute 2 left in this game with a hand in his face when the Raptors absolutely had to win this game. It's not better than the shot. It's not bigger than the shot. But that three I will never forget hitting. It was just a ridiculous classic Kawhi laser beam into the net three when they needed it most. And it was just like, God, that was such a big fucking shot.
This is peak cowards and frauds. Embiid finishes with 13, and Ben Simmons finishes with 7 points on 3 of 5 shooting. And one of them was a coward and one of them was a fraud. Simmons, I believe, was a coward for being too afraid to shoot, I believe was what our...
Yes. Right, because he wouldn't take threes.
Yes. He wouldn't take anything, really. And then Game 5... which you talked about before the shot. In Game 5, Kawhi dunks on Embiid twice.
That's right.
And to me, I was like, that's the best we're ever going to see. Like, it's never going to get better than that because I didn't know, obviously, the shot was coming. But Drake is doing the airplane spin back.
Yeah.
ACC's going nuts. This is peak. This is the peak cowards and frauds game. All those numbers I just said are from Game 5. Game 5 was... I was convinced we weren't ever going to see a game like this in this series. Like, the Raptors are just going to crush them. It was 125-89, Raptors by 36 in Game 5. That is as fun as you are going to have in the ACC or the Scotiabank Arena.
Yeah, there's a similar thing I think happened in the finals with the Warriors, where there was one game where we just crushed them and you were like, oh, okay, they could actually do this. I think it was Game 4 with the Warriors. But I remember this one being like the mood swing in like 4 days in this series was nuts.
It becomes a bit of a running theme as to like Kawhi scoring less almost ends up being better. Kawhi only has 21 in this game. I mean, they're up big, so he didn't have to play that much. But Kawhi only has 21. Pascal has 25, and Lowry has 19. When Lowry was scoring in this playoff run, they were pretty much unbeatable.
Yeah, and eventually, literally.
The 76ers get it back. Of course it has to be dramatic. Of course it goes to a Game 7. Raptors trail big early. They really didn't get out to a very good start, and they weren't able to, because they scored 35 points in the fourth quarter. They outscored them 34-25 in the fourth, but still lose the game by 11. They were down far too much going into the fourth quarter. Kawhi again, 29 and 12. But, didn't really get the support. Siakam scored 20, and Van Vliet, once again, only scoring 1 point in this game. Van Vliet's numbers in this series, it's unbelievable that this is the same guy. He averaged 2 points in this series, shot 12% from the field, and was 1 of 14 from 3 in the entire series. That is crazy.
I don't think we can adequately overstate how much Raptors Twitter was done with Fred at this point. Myself included. Every time he took a shot, it was like, no, it was like the no. Like, you didn't want him to shoot.
There was 2 things we knew for sure, is that Gasol had to be on the court for every second that Embiid was on the court, because if he wasn't, they would get killed, and you couldn't play Van Vliet. Those are the 2 things we knew for sure.
And we were kind of unsure about Serge.
And, Jake, that brings us to the reason we are here today. It's Game 7, Raptors versus 76ers. It's May 12th, 2019 from the Scotiabank Arena, and we will talk about one of the greatest games in Raptors history next time on Sportsfeld Storytime.